Hello everyone, welcome back. It's Pastor Howie Maxson here, and since we've been going through 1 John and finished that up, and then in our last video did 2 John, the second letter of John, we today, or in this video I should say, and it is daytime here, we'll share with you 3 John. So before I tell you about 3 John, I want to correct something that I may have given you the wrong impression about. There is no actual evidence that the leader of the church that John was writing to in his second letter was necessarily a woman. The fact that he addresses the letter to as the elder to the elect lady may simply have been a reference to the church, the bride of Christ that he was writing to. And again, he doesn't identify himself by name. He doesn't identify the name or location of the church that he was writing to, but clearly was writing to a church, the bride of Christ, the chosen lady, and so I just wanted to clear that up. When we come to 3 John, we come to a much more personal letter, because again, the author does not identify himself specifically as John. It simply has been traditionally attributed to John the Apostle, and the language in it contains phrases that came from 1 John. And so we think, I believe anyway, I shouldn't say we think, a lot of people think it's written by John. Other people dispute that as to dates and authors and all that kind of stuff. I don't. I take the traditional stand that it's written by John the Apostle. But this time he identifies his recipient, a person named Gaius. He identifies a couple other people in here as well. So this is a more personal letter. And it's a letter to someone he knows very well, someone that he appreciates, considers a true brother in Christ. He speaks about someone who is against what's going on in the church, but not to the point of being called an antichrist, like he spoke of in 2 John to anyone that did not come believing in the name and in the incarnation of Jesus Christ. And then he writes about another person in this letter to Gaius who he knows very well and commends back to Gaius for his faithfulness to the truth. So here's a personal letter from this apostle, probably again written later in the 1st century. Perhaps the last letter we have, because I don't believe that Revelation is the last thing that the Apostle John was given to write. I believe that came earlier. Not too much earlier. I think it came around 70 AD, maybe just prior to that. I can't prove it, but then again, I can't prove it was written towards the end of the 1st century either. So we're going to be looking at that over the next several videos, because it is in our Bibles, follows 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, so I thought we would look into that next and stay with the writings of John. I might also consider looking at the book of Jude, which in the order that these books appear in our Bibles, they come next, but we'll see. Anyway, let's look at 3 John. Only one chapter, so it's 3 John in its entirety, and here we go. Again, the elder addresses himself. The elder, to my dear friend Gaius, whom I love in the truth. So he is a brother in Christ, and they haven't seen each other for a while apparently. The elder, John, will speak about how he wants to get together with Gaius sometime in the near future, rather than continuing to write with ink and paper. But now he addresses him as his dear friend Gaius, whom I love in the truth. So he truly loves him, but he also loves him in the truth, which is another way perhaps of saying in the faith, the truth, the way, the truth, and the life of Christ. Dear friend, I pray that you may enjoy good health, and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well. So he knows something of the spiritual well-being of Gaius, and he wishes him good physical health as well. It gave me great joy, the elder says, when some believers came and testified about your faithfulness to the truth, telling how you continue to walk in it. So he hasn't seen him in a while, but he's heard about him, and he's been faithful to the gospel, faithful to Christ, the embodiment of truth, faithful to the cause, which is the proclamation of the truth. I have no greater joy, verse 4 says, than to hear that my children are walking in the truth. And this gives us a clue to the possibility, and I think probably the fact, that Gaius was a disciple that John made by way of introducing Gaius to the gospel of Jesus Christ, and Gaius accepting the invitation to follow Christ. And so he considers him his children walking in the, one of his children walking in the truth. Dear friend, again he says, verse 5, you are faithful in what you are doing for the brothers and sisters, even though they are strangers to you. Now that tells me that I don't know if Gaius is an elder himself, if he is hosting a church, but he is certainly someone who is a benefactor to the spread of the gospel in the work of others. Faithful in what you are doing for the brothers and sisters. They have told the church about your love. Please send them on their way in a manner that honors God. So I again think that here's a man who may or may not have an office in the church, may not be hosting a church, but he certainly is someone who is a benefactor to the spread of the gospel. It was for the sake of the name that they went forth. Now that probably is a reference, again in code, to Jesus. Receiving no help from the pagans. Obviously the pagans weren't interested. We ought to therefore to show hospitality to such people, so that we may work together for the truth. Now that's an interesting turn of words. Show hospitality to them so that we may work together for the truth. When we show hospitality to missionaries, to evangelists, to other brothers and sisters who are working for the truth, then we are participating with them wherever it is they go. We're part of their support project. So if we're supporting missionaries in other lands, then we are participating in the work that they are doing. And we should support missionaries. We should support evangelists. We should support those who are not a part of our particular tribe or congregation, but are doing works in places that you and I might never see with our own eyes. But they are out there doing the work, and therefore we are doing the work with them by way of our support for them. Verse 9, he turns a little bit. I wrote to the church, and apparently the church that Gaius is a part of. Now, whether Gaius is a leader or not, don't know. But he wrote to the church, and the church must be a church that Gaius is familiar with, because he doesn't go into details. He simply says, I wrote to the church, but Diotrephes, again, another person, and probably a person who Gaius knows, who loves to be first, will not welcome us. So whatever the problem is with Diotrephes, he is not the same as Gaius, who is hospitable to those who work in the gospel. So when I come, I will call attention to what he's doing. spreading malicious nonsense about us. Not satisfied with that, he even refuses to welcome other believers. He also stops those who want to do so and puts them out of the church. That gives me the impression that Demetrius is the leader, and he's not a very good leader. He's self-centered, apparently. He's building walls to protect his sheep, so to speak, quote unquote, and he's not cooperating with those who are traveling, perhaps wanting to stay with the believers wherever this little church is and helping them on their way. He'll have nothing to do with that. And sadly, there are a lot of churches today who are not interested in being hospitable to others, especially hospitable to those who are faithful brothers and sisters in Christ traveling on their way. Missions sometimes suffers because some churches are so self-centered that they're not missionary minded. I'm thankful that I'm pastoring a church that is not that way. And it's not because of me, because the church I pastor was a church that supported missionaries most all of its existence. And so I'm just happy to be in the midst of that and not in the midst of a church that's been affected by someone like Diotrephes. Dear friend, verse 11, do not imitate what is evil. Don't be like Diotrephes, but what is good. Anyone who does what is good is from God. Anyone who does what is evil has not seen God. And so again, there's a phrase that we see in the previous two letters. So these letters were certainly written by the same person, and I believe by the same person who wrote the gospel and was given the revelation. Anyone who does what is evil has not seen God. Demetrius is well spoken of by everyone. So here is another person. So the elder, John, is writing to Gaius, who is a hospitable person, faithful to the gospel. He's writing about Diotrephes, who may very well be the leader of the church that Gaius is a part of, and he's not a good leader. He's not hospitable. He's not furthering the gospel. But there's another person in this mix, and his name is Demetrius. Demetrius is well spoken of by everyone, and even by the truth itself, which means people are speaking well of Demetrius, but at the same time, the way Demetrius lives is commended by what we already have revealed to us in the scriptures. So by the truth commends him, because he is perhaps we could say a living model and embodiment of the truth of Christ. We also speak well of him, John says, and you know that our testimony is true. So John knows this man, Demetrius. I have much to write to you, he says, but I do not want to do so with pen and ink. I hope to see you soon, and we will talk face to face, which is, the best way for us to fellowship together and talk face to face. Peace to you. The friends here send their greetings. Again, this is kind of secretive. He doesn't identify where here is. He doesn't identify what the friends' names. Just the friends here send their greetings. Greet the friends there by name. So he's being careful. During times of persecution and trouble, we need to be careful. But we never need to stop proclaiming the gospel, the truth, the way, the truth, and the life of Christ, who is the one who said, come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Who said to this apostle and his brother and the other apostles, follow me. And as we accept the invitation to follow Jesus, we are following the way of Jesus. We are following the truth of Jesus. We are following the life of Jesus. And may God bless us that we might be commended by the truth and commendable in the sight of other people as being faithful sisters and brothers of Christ and in Christ. So peace to you, And next video will either be a short look through the little letter of Jude or the beginnings of a look into what John saw and heard in the Revelation. Peace to you. God willing, you'll see us on Sunday mornings, still at 9:30, Fowler Baptist Church on Facebook. And until we meet again, have a blessed day.